Hello and welcome to the December meeting of the Library Marketing Book Club. Thanks so much for joining. Thank you for those of you who could be here today in person. I know it's a holiday week, so certainly some folks may have had a tough time, but I really appreciate you all coming and making the effort to get here on this holiday week. And today we are going to be talking a little bit about the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. So it is Grit, The Power of Perseverance, and a book that's written a little while ago. Angela Duckworth, first, I think she first introduced this concept really in a TED Talk several years ago, one of the super popular TED Talks. And just because I'm trying to practice some things, let's see if we can. I'm going to do a little poll. And so if you can just answer this poll, did you read the book or read some of the book or read all the book or none of the book? And it's totally cool, whatever you did. But I want to take a look and see because, yeah, great. All right, I think that's everybody is in. So here's our results. So we had a couple who haven't had a chance yet. Totally cool. Totally happens. Sometimes this is a good incentive for you to read a book that you may not have had a chance for. A little bit of the book, yeah, it's definitely one that you get a lot of value out of it, sort of right out of the gate. So it's great if you had a chance to read a little bit of it, and if you finished it, that's awesome. It's it is a really good book. It's a good one to listen to, and or read. So great to see everybody. So we'll do what we usually do for the start. I will throw it out to the group and see, what did you all think of this book? What was what did you think if you had a chance to read it? What was it that you liked or that you found interesting? Anybody jump on in?
Well, hi, this is Denna.
Hey, Dana.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks so much for joining today. What's going on? What did you think?
I had heard of this book, but I went ahead and just watched some of the YouTube
Yeah.
videos because I've been following podcasts with the subjects and different things.
Oh,
So I really this is a book that brings up topics that I love and
yeah.
despise at the same time. Um, um, but it's because
What can you give us an example of each? That would be great.
yeah, I mean, I think it's because I love the direction that the author is going, and she's obviously scientist and educated and a teacher and just has that practical sense of how this all works in everyday life. But
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand what she's saying. I have witnessed some of, like grit in my life and in at work as an individual, as a parent. Um, and when I see um for example, like a perceived barrier will come up as like, oh, should I continue to pursue this? It's getting really hard. And some of the questions that the author takes after she wrote this book is, what to do in those situations. And so that's the challenging part is when well, there are many challenging parts, but that's one example. Like when to keep in pursuit and keep a growth mindset and you know keep that positive focus and when you should just repivot and the exploration of values is another
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing I found from
Yeah.
this book, so I'll leave it there.
No, it's great. And I can see what you're saying. There are some where it's like, well, a lot of the message is, is about perseverance and the value of perseverance and how it brings rewards and how it brings achievement and um and yeah, and it's pushing through. And then there are even some other things in there where it's like, yeah, but it's okay to give up. And uh, you know, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right to stop. And it makes it yeah, so it doesn't necessarily maybe take a stance on that in every word of the book. But yeah, that's interesting that there are both things that are positive and confounding, which is not unusual in like TED Talk speakers and academics and things like that. So yeah, it's a really yeah, it was interesting. It makes the book very interesting, I think, to read and definitely evoke some emotions. That's yeah, Dana, that's great. I think that's really cool. Anybody else have something about the book, about what you thought about the book?
Well, I'll say something even though I didn't read it,
That's okay, Mary.
but
Yeah.
I listened to the TED Talk and
Yeah,
I went online and got like a synopsis of it.
sure. Yeah.
And to me, I mean, grit, I don't know how you can teach somebody grit. I mean, that's the thing that to me, it's your attitude.
Yeah.
And I don't have children, but I've had a lot of people that have reported to me over the years, and you either got it or you don't got it. And I don't know how you can make somebody have grit. That's the only thing what she is purporting is you can teach it. Maybe a little kid starting out that's not like, you know, already set in their ways, but I think as a professional, when you have people working for you, it's impossible. I mean, they're either going to do it or they're not going to do it. And
Yeah.
that's the only thing part of what she was saying that I'm like, I don't know about that. But that's just from my experience. So
Yeah, it's tough to think about how do you get grittier. Yeah, certainly the more and more that you have behind you, and what kind of things can you do to get grittier? There are some interesting things in the book. There is a bit of an exploration of that in the book about how to get grittier. On this whiteboard page. So again, I can y'all see the whiteboard page? Yeah, okay. And her formula that she puts forth in the book is talent times effort equals skill, and skill times effort equals achievement. So that's kind of her way of saying, as I understood it from the book, that's kind of her way of saying you can increase things, but it takes, effort can get you there, but yeah, but then again, can it? And how much is there and what kind of things there are? There are some examples in the book too of like a lot of these books about people that have done things very late in life that they may not have done earlier. But it is, yeah, it's interesting to think. And it did, I don't know if y'all had a chance, but if you oops, sorry, I don't mean to keep moving it away. I've got a cat here that is enjoying that I'm here in the living room. Um, but if you've taken the grit scale, and I'll put it in I don't know, it'll hyperlink it in the chat, but there's the grit scale, and um, why don't it's very quick to take. So if you wouldn't, if you're interested in doing it, just take a moment and this will be an interactive portion. It's 10 questions. It should just take a couple minutes. So why don't we take just a couple minutes? Take your grit scale if you haven't. If you have taken it, post it and you remember what it is, post it in the chat. And let's just take a few minutes for that. And we'll have a little bit of dead air while folks take that. Angela, 4. Very cool. 4 is very gritty. Very gritty. So it's out of 5. Man, oh my gosh, 4.5. You're already so gritty. I'm embarrassed to post mine, though I already posted it.
I
Mine
don't
is
think it's a good thing
no,
sometimes.
you don't think so?
Gets me in trouble
Well, that makes me
in
feel
my
better
whole
because mine
life.
is.
Yeah, so I don't know. Questionable.
Why, so why don't you think it's a good thing? Brienne, 2.4. Yes, much like me. Mary, why don't you think it's a good thing?
Well, I mean, I have a big mouth and I tell people how I feel, and it gets me in trouble. And I've been that way my whole life since I was, like 3. So
But have you
um,
have you
sometimes
seen
it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
have you felt like it's helped you achieve different things?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
when I get my mind set on something, ain't nothing stopping me. I don't care. I'm pretty determined, so in that way it's good,
Yeah.
but sometimes I can offend people, too. So,
Yeah. Oh
I
well.
as learned that over the years to keep my mouth shut sometimes. But as far as, getting things done and accomplishing things, it's definitely helps to have grit.
Yeah. Yeah. It can, yes, it definitely does. I mean, it definitely seems like it is there is a lot of benefit from that quality. Angela, what about you? You're pretty gritty yourself. How do you feel grit has helped you or hurt you?
I mean, I wasn't surprised. I
Yeah.
did recognize myself in a lot of what she said in the book.
Hmm.
So I'm not upset with the score, and I don't tell people. Probably I need to be more like Mary, because I need to tell people when I don't need to be such a people pleaser. My therapist says I'm a people pleaser, so we've got that going. Gritty, but a people pleaser. I'm just gonna like kind of piggyback though off of what,
Sure.
I don't know if this is piggybacking off what Dana and Deanna
Yeah.
and Mary said, but uh, I also felt a little prickly when I read it, and I couldn't figure out why.
Hmm.
Like, what is it about this? I am gritty. Why am I upset by this book? And I really think I looked at when it was published,
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think we have learned, or at least I have personally been on a journey of like learning about um the many outside factors that play into a person's success. And what we
Hmm.
know now versus what we know in 2016 about systemic racism and poverty
Yeah.
and like our political system and
Yeah.
classism, all those things. This is all great. And I think if someone is open to being more gritty, it's a great book. But I also feel like there are a lot of things that a lot of people who would be gritty, who are still not being successful because of cards are stacked
Mm.
against them. Like that's just the
Yeah.
way it is, and it sucks. But so it took me, I spent like a week walking around going, why do I not like this book? It's fine. Everything is fine. What am I so upset about? That's what I landed on.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, it is interesting to think of it in the environment, and in the book there is a little discussion about nature versus nurture, and how things can be affected for sure. And but yeah, I think that it was written at a different time, and studied at a different time, and the big change in the world and the big mm, mm, awakening in the world, not in a bad, but the big opening to a lot of things that are going on. And yeah, it makes it difficult to think that this is, kind of, yeah, similar to like what Mary and Denna were saying. Like, yeah, it's an interesting theory. It's a good theory. It seems like it's got some real tenterhooks to it, but is it something that's really practical? And even if you think about the first case when they start off with the book, so the book, for those of you who hadn't had a chance, but the first case is really about West Point cadets. So it's already about the theory. If that's what the theory is based on, it's based on a theory of already a super narrow, super um specific group of people, and then taking that group of people that in some ways you might say were elite, but also had certain, a lot of opportunities, um that maybe not everybody has. And then you take that group and then you go, well, this part of the group is gritty and this part of the group is not. just to get to West Point, just to get to that point, you have to already be really pretty gritty. They're probably talking about it may be, it may be one of those studies where they're talking about the difference between a 4.7 on the grit scale and a 4.9 on the grit scale. Like it's super narrow. So, and it does kind of move into some things. So yeah, I agree. I think that's interesting. Brienne 2.4, right around me with a 2.3. And to me it made sense because I can see where I am not gritty. I'm actually was listening to something else this week and they were talking about, or I don't know if it was this book. Was it this book where they talked about it's better shipped than perfect? I think that was a podcast, right? Or was it you, Angela, that was talking about it?
No, I know who
thought
said
it might have been.
That's either Jay Acunzo or Andrew Davis. They're kind of
Yes.
friends. And Jay always talks about just get it out there and don't worry about it being perfect, which is like,
Right.
I love that.
Yeah, it's better shipped than perfect. And I am aware that I am not perfect about things. If I take the time, this is where grit for me takes a kind of a turn. So I feel like I'm gritty about some things, but I feel like I'm gritty about the wrong things. So I will work really hard sometimes at something and not put it out because I'm working really hard at it. And I don't think that that's a positive thing. And I don't know if maybe that's something that some of you others were feeling, that it's like, yeah, I mean, I can work and work and work at something, but if I don't get it complete, yeah, Dana, thank you. If I don't get it complete, then then what's the value in all that time that I spent in it when I could have spent it last week? So, um, so yeah, so I think it's good. Dana 3.1, so you're kind of right in the middle of grit. That sounds like a fair fit to. What did you think about your score, Dana or Brienne? What did you think about your scores?
Sure, I'll chime in. I was surprised in taking the quiz what my reactions to the quiz were.
Yeah.
And I thank Angela for talking about what her reactions are while she's reading the book. Yeah, because I wanted to it is so odd because I feel like there are definitely sectors of my life where I have a tenacious grit, just relentless. I will pursue and I will overcome and I will, and then there's this whole other side of me that's totally a unicorn in the rainbow clouds. And I am distracted and I'm frolicking and I'm like, so I know like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this big thing and it's going to be amazing. And then I take, like I put my toe in the water. I'm like, no. So it's
Yeah, that's
so
what you're
odd.
saying. Yeah. Yeah. It is really weird. Yeah, that you have those. Yeah, you have those feelings that you're gonna go and you're gonna give it all and that, and then it gives up. Brian, did you have anything to share about where you fell and what you thought about it? Brian, I can't remember. You may not have a microphone, but or Elaine, you can type into the chat too what you thought, because you were up there in the grit scale too. Yeah, no microphone. That's right, Brienne. I forgot. Thank you. Well, feel free to type some stuff into the chat. Fran, I don't know if you had a chance to take it. But yeah, but I think I always find, I hope you do too. I always find little quizzes and evaluations like that interesting, always to see. Fran also 3.8, no microphone. Yes. Yeah, we need to get some people to get some microphones around. But awesome that y'all are here. And if you have anything to share, please do it in the chat. But yeah, so it's an interesting thing, and yeah, there's some interesting cases in there. Now the one thing that is like on the one thing that I did think about, and kind of in that whiteboard, um equations, those whiteboard equations that are there, is that while you may not be gritty, there are some principles that I think come up an awful lot, in not just this book, but in other books and other discussions that we have, that Elaine's surprised, but given some things you've gone through professionally, you shouldn't be. Okay. So yeah, so maybe surprised, but yeah, then maybe it helps explain some things and why they've happened. Hopefully they are not insurmountable or maybe positive. But yeah, but I think, one of the messages from the book is really about, it is about persistence and it is about practice. And so those were a couple of things I was interested in seeing. And I know a lot of you do this, and Angela, you have a very regular schedule, and you are really good at getting your content out on a regular schedule. And I would say that maybe is a hallmark of your grittiness, but and I think, and do you think, Angela, I mean, I know this is a topic that is kind of ages old in marketing, but how do you feel that aspect of persistence in getting content out, do you encounter like do you encounter challenges in that, but push through them because you have to make sure that email goes out on that day? Or what are some of your takeaways from the persistence of being gritty?
Yeah. So when I was reading this book, I thought a little bit about the super library marketing side, because that all that stuff that I do on that side of my professional life is unpaid. That is passion. So like the whole
Right.
part where she was talking about passion, I was like, okay, this
Yeah.
is me. And I think it's just really knowing yourself. So knowing that I have deadlines that I have self-imposed is what
Yeah.
pushes me over the edge. And also I work way far ahead, like
Yeah.
further ahead. And it's become a habit also. And with my work with novelists, I've noticed that
Yeah.
it helps if I start something way ahead of time. I am not a procrastinator. I finish very early, and then I let it like sit and marinate. And then I like to just like the day before it's supposed to go out, kind of tweak it and polish it. And then I don't feel terrible about putting it out in the world, even if it's not finished. I think it's just
Yeah.
knowing yourself really well. I will say the most of the rest of this book, I felt like really applied to my life, to my regular work life,
Mm-hmm.
which has been way more bumpy in a lot of ways than the blog. Like
Yeah.
even at Novelist, we have gone through so many changes. And I don't know if this is all thing at other people's libraries. When I worked at the library in Cincinnati, we had a saying like, don't get comfortable in your desk or with your manager, because you're probably going to be moving in a year. You're going to get reorganized. We're reorganizing all the time.
Yeah.
And for me, that's where the grittiness had to come into play, because I was so like, well, we're changing again. So now I just have to get used to this next manager and move to a different desk in a different place. And it was just like a whole thing. I think other people that really threw them off, which is, I mean, it's just people's personalities. And again, I'm like, I don't know that you can teach people that kind of agility or flexibility. And it is hard and it is not fair. I mean, just because
Yeah.
I can deal with it doesn't mean that it's fair to the rest of my team to be constantly changing. So I don't know how other people felt reading in those parts of the book. If you felt like it really applied to your work and all of the chaos that goes on in libraries, or if that was just a Cincinnati library thing. I don't know.
What did others think about that? I guess Mary and Denna, you have the microphone availability if or please feel free, anybody who doesn't, to put in the chat. But is that the same, Mary? Do you see that too?
Well, for me, I mean, I've worked a lot of different places before coming to the library. I've just been here 5 years. And to me, the library is like, doesn't change at all. I mean, it
Oh,
does, but
really?
for me,
For
I
you?
had so much change in my career. I mean, I worked in
Mm.
banking when we were bought out like
Oh,
3 times, and name changed 4 times, and new
wow.
boss every other minute. And I agree with you, Angela. If you're not flexible and you can't change, you're screwed. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
and you just have to go with it. And I mean, the library, the change that's gone on here to me is like a piece of cake. I mean, because I've had so much, and I lost a job when a new president came in. I got the axe. And that was hard.
Yeah.
And so to me, the library is just like heaven. I mean, this is nothing, man. I've been
That's
through so much
nice.
crap that this is, like I said, is like heaven. So
That's nice.
I don't know.
That's nice. No, that's nice that you have
Yeah.
that experience. It's different. Yeah, I mean, I would say that we have a significant amount of change. I know for the first few years that I was here in the library, it was the public service side was Angela, like what you were saying. I mean, it was constant movement. It was everybody was moving, didn't know where they were going to be. Um, they reorganized from this set of regions to that set of regions to, another different model, and they had different managers and different regional managers. The other thing that's been interesting for it's interesting because it approaches sometimes things with our annual planning. And, so we've had a couple things that have been pretty stable in our annual plan since our current director's been here. We've still been always kind of going toward the 75% of the community uses or contributes to the library in the next 10 years. So that's been pretty stable. In the last couple of years, we focused primarily on distinct active cardholders and how can we get more distinct active cardholders. But a lot of the different aspects of the annual plan and how the planning process is going has been variable, like year to year to year. So it's been tough sometimes to kind of get a multi-year grip on something because it does feel like, there's a new planning cycle every year. So we're doing, and I understand, certainly you need to plan um, new projects or new initiatives. I mean, that's one thing, but it seems like there were a lot of years in there where even the way that we were planning and the approach that we made to planning was different. So it made it very challenging and it made it hard to kind of get through all that. So yeah. So I think that's true. And yeah, Angela, and then when you talk about the passion of doing something, and certainly, if it's something you control yourself, it definitely makes it a great proposition to be able to find ways to make that work and very successful, which is wonderful. I think, there have been some things I've heard recently around the topic of passion, um, where some people have said, well, it's not about finding your passion, so which I think has been interesting. I know that Scott Galloway, Professor G, Prof G is is not a big fan of the find your passion school of success. And there's been some, talks about like commencement speeches where they say, find your passion. It's like, well, you got to really find something that makes it, successful. And sometimes your passion may not match up, but sometimes it will. Angela, what did you have to
I was just going to ask you what he thinks you're supposed to do if you're not supposed to use your
Yeah,
passion.
I have to look back
Like,
and
what is
see.
the so what's the option then? I
I
mean,
think there was a match of passion and practicality that because the way that he looks at life. So, um, Prop G, if you've ever heard, is a little. I'm not a huge fan. I think he's got some interesting theories, but I think he's got some different things. But I've heard some different things about passion. So, Angela, what were you saying?
no, I was just gonna. The one thing that I didn't, there was another part of the book that I didn't agree with that she said, which was there's like, and I don't know, maybe I didn't really understand it. It was something about passion also being a choice, and I don't think it's a choice.
Yeah,
Like, I guess it's a choice to pursue it, but I don't know. Like, I think everybody has something in their life that they're passionate about, whether
yeah,
it's baking or like your dogs or whatever. You may not even use that word to describe it. And I don't think it's a choice. I think it chooses you. And,
yeah,
again, it's a matter of luck circumstances.
Sure.
I am lucky. I get to do my thing because I work from home.
Yeah.
And I don't like, I'm saving 40 minutes a day on a commute.
Nice.
So that gives me time to pursue my passion. There are people out there who don't have that, those luxuries, and they have passions, but they just can't pursue it. And it's not a choice. It's just like the way their lives are. So anyway.
Yeah. Are you talking about because there was the point, was it there was the part in the book where she was talking about her kids and what the kids are passionate about and what the kids are enjoying?
So. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were talking about like, yeah, well, and if you don't like this, then, then try it for a year. There was some kind of rules that they had about them. And it did seem a little difficult to manage that. But yeah, and I think you're right. I think people that don't have that, that set up in their current daytime, that's when you hear about the people talking about, well, work on it overnight or work on it first thing in the morning, or you having to sacrifice other hours to get that, which is noble, but it's a big challenge. And I thought that one was weird too. It was like, well, if you want to try the violin, you have to try it for a year, and you have to have this, these qualifications of a reason in order to give it up. And it's like, well, is that really finding your passion, or is that hoping that maybe you'll box yourself into what this passion is? And it was kind of an unusual one. So Elaine, you identify with Angela. You've been through a building project, apartment renovations, a new director, new assistant directors, and your work area's moved 5 times, and you're on your 5th boss. So so Angela, Elaine definitely empathizes with that same situation. And
how do we even
tough.
get any work done in those situations? And I, of course, I am biased. I think there are many parts of the library where employees have had to demonstrate grit over the past 3 years, but particularly in marketing, because it always comes down to us, doesn't it? Being successful and the 3,000 things we had to change. And then I had somebody email me recently, and I didn't mean to laugh, but it was sort of a funny little email. They were talking about how frustrated they are with social media algorithms, and the way they phrased it, it was like, first you do Reels, then you got to do TikTok, and then you got to do this, and then you got to do that. See what I mean? And I'm like, yeah. Yes, you are right. It is nuts, and you have to have grit. So I don't care what the scores are. I think everybody in this club has grit, because we have to. We just have to.
Yeah. No, I think that's true, Angela. I think, that the grit scale maybe it's an interesting approach to a theory, but yes, there are things, and I think there's things that everybody does have grit for. And I think it just, like you said, I think you said it well, is it's the circumstances and the environment that sometimes make it challenging to actualize maybe that grit. So, it makes it hard. It makes it hard to kind of get through and take advantage of what that grit is. Because I mean, my grit score is relatively low. Apparently I'm grittier than 10% of the population, which is a pretty low amount. I was surprised at that. Not totally, but a little bit surprised, because there's definitely things that I've done and that have required some grit that I've gotten through. And maybe it's just a matter of how I can take that, and how you can take what you do have that's gritty and apply it to the things that are most important to you. And that may be where lies the achievement and the success. It would be interesting to see what the population grit scale is in the past 3 years. I can imagine, because that was just such a huge change, mental, emotional, physical, environmental, that everybody went through. And it would be interesting to see what some of those things are now. One other thing in the book that and it again, it's probably not what she relies on most in the book, but it's something that I've been really curious about from this book and other books, and that's this idea of practice. So I know there's 10,000 hours. I think probably a third or more of the books that we read talk about the 10,000 hours, but there does seem to be something to practicing. And Angela, I know you teach in the writing, you teach about practicing writing, and I know we've had conversations in here about practice. Um, and so this is maybe not necessarily the book, but I'd be interested in seeing if anybody has any thoughts about, like, how do you what are some ways to practice the skills that we have to um for marketing? Like, what are some ways that we can practice that? Is there a way for us to practice some of our different marketing skills? Certainly writing. I mean, writing is definitely a big one. It's a huge part of what we do. um and what are anybody's thoughts about practice and how practice helps, and what kind of practice do you do, or what kind of practice do you recommend? Does anybody have anything to share there? God bless you. Maybe my question. Denna, what you got?
Yeah, I don't know if I do have the question interpreted correctly, but you're
That's all
asking
right.
about, yeah.
It wasn't a great question, but go ahead.
No, I mean it is a great question. I just don't know if I interpreted it correctly, but
Sure.
um so for me, practicing anything, having that sameness on routine takes a lot of grit on my part.
Yeah.
And it is not joyful to me. So I have to use my, like, okay, this has to be done because I'm not a routine person. Routine
Mm.
bores me. And I feel
Mm.
like I'm missing the most relevant things that are in front of my face if I'm stopping to do this other thing that I said that I would just routinely do.
Yeah.
So I have to use my grit and my values to connect with the work, with routine work that I'm doing that doesn't inspire me, because I know that um I need to find meaning and connection, like, on a daily basis. And
Mm.
it is hard for me to do routine if I can't connect to it. So I do use my grit, my gumption to get those things done, look to
Mhm.
my value system. Like, in the end, like, what is this, really, what is this for in the big picture?
Yeah.
And that does help me um, get through some of those things. So for me, the practice is practicing.
Yeah.
Practicing routine is the
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that's it too. I mean, I think that's what I feel too, is like trying to practice the routines and trying to get into cycles of practice. And it's easy to yeah, if that's not something that you're predisposed to, it can be challenging, it can be painful. Um, but it can be interesting too sometimes to see the results of when you do practice at something. I've been trying to practice posting regularly to some platforms. I have not been successful at it, so it's been frustrating. But when I was doing it regularly, I posted on LinkedIn for probably about a week or two, like every day, and it was neat to see some results, and that was encouraging. I guess it was not encouraging enough to keep me going at it every day. But I like to get into the habit of some practice and see some results. So yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking, was like, what kind of things. And yeah, I've just been thinking a lot about practicing marketing. Like, what are some, I know in some earlier days I, joined or as part of the American Marketing Association chapter, which was neat to practice some different things. But yeah, I don't know if there's a way to practice some of the things that we need to do marketing, but I'd be interested in finding out what those might be. So, um, So anyway, that was my thought on practice. Angela, you have something?
I will argue that all of the marketing that you do around the Library Marketing Book Club is practicing
Oh,
marketing.
yeah, I feel like that too. Yes, that I definitely feel like it is. Thank you. And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. And to say to all of you, I feel like being a part of the Library Marketing Book Club is practice. Not all the same theories, but definitely coming to these meetings, I think, is a good opportunity to practice by talking to other marketing people about challenges and opportunities and ways that you do that. So thank you. Yeah, I think that it is something that has provided some good things, and yeah, and I hope you all have the opportunity to participate in other extracurricular things. I know time is tough, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there. And I can even make a plug for the Library Marketing Communications group that runs the conference every year. And if anybody is interested, please fill out a volunteer form. There are lots of opportunities there to join. That wasn't my intent with this, but hey, it fit pretty well. So yeah, so very cool. So yeah, so this was a an interesting book for us to read. Certainly, it's definitely one of the more marketing adjacent, not really marketing direct books. But I'm glad that we read it, and I hope you are too. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, give it a shot, or at least I would say listen to the TED Talk, listen to the see what other kinds of things there are out there on this subject. And yeah, like we've also brought up a couple other interesting marketing thinkers to listen to. Jay Acunzo. Jay Acunzo is fantastic. If you haven't had a chance, please try and find some stuff that he does. He's got a wonderful marketing mind. Very interesting person to follow. And also, I think Angela, you brought up the person who had the challenge with what are you supposed to do in the different social media marketing space, and what kind of things are you supposed to do? And now you're Reels, and now it's this, and then it's TikTok, and then oh man, now all these same groups, they're over at Discord or they're at Snapchat, and is the one that I'm hearing a lot about Snapchat lately. Um, but if you think of somebody like Joe Polizzi who would talk about, just get really good on one platform, which now y'all hear that. It seems difficult to do that with our library marketing for me um, because of the expectations of people that are further and further outside our circles. Is that something that do you know what I'm talking about? Like it would be great to say all we're going to do this year in the library, we are only going to post on Instagram, and that's the only platform we're going to use. We're dropping Facebook, we're dropping, well, Twitter. I mean, I think everybody's pretty much gone from there, which sounds so great. But in this environment, thanks, Angela, for writing Jay Kunzo. It sounds so great, but it's so hard to do. It's so hard. Has anybody had any success, or does anybody equally, Dana, you put a thumbs up, feel the pain of, well, we'd really like to, kind of drop back on some of these other platforms, but there's the expectation from our bosses, from our boards, from some of our community members that we have to be there. Mary, did you have something?
Well, based on Angela's latest, or well, maybe last week's post about Twitter and getting off, we are getting off.
Good for you.
Yep. I'm going to do exactly what you suggested. I talked to my director about it. She agreed. And I'm posting tomorrow a post that we're no longer posting to this channel or whatever. And if you want to learn, stay connected to the library, visit our website or our Instagram or Facebook, and then I'm going to pin it to the top of the page. I'm not going to close the page like you suggested, Angela, because you never know. Elon Musk might get run over by a car or something, a Tesla. He might get run over in the Tesla plant. And you never know. So I I think it's the right thing to do. It sometimes I get a little scared because there's some good stuff on there still, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to be okay. And we can always go back. I mean,
Right.
so we're going to try it. And I've also tried some of your tips, Angela, about LinkedIn and what to post, and it's already working better
That's
because I
great.
always struggled with that. So, I guess that's part of learning and practicing too, is, you know, being connected in groups like this. I try to learn. I mean, I'm old and I've been around a really long time. So I really need to keep learning. I think that's a passion of mine, is to really keep learning.
Great.
So I'm always signing up for webinars and joining groups. I've served on a couple of committees with LMCC.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference, and it keeps you relevant and keeps you, like interest. Like oh, this is fun. I'm learning new stuff. I like this.
Yeah.
And that helps me a lot. So I'm trying.
That's great. It's excellent, Mary. Angela, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I totally understand the fear sometimes of trying something new or pulling back from something new. Recently, I ended up taking over Novelist's social media. So I had a person who was doing it, and now I'm back to doing it. And it's been a while since I did posts for not just myself, but for a company or a library.
Yeah.
But so I'm practicing trying to figure out. I mean, I think I have the LinkedIn stuff down pretty well, but Facebook um is a different beast since the last time I was posting for a library. So I'm practicing now and I don't know who was saying this in the chat, but like just trying something and then seeing what the metrics tell you. I mean, that's all we can do to figure out whether it's true or not. And I did what you are doing, Mary, with the libraryware, Twitter, and Facebook last week. And even though I said you should do it, I'm still nervous. You know what I mean? Like you just can't help it. So,
Yeah.
but I did it and it's done. And now I feel better about it a week later.
Yeah, I think yeah, and I think it was Fran, and Fran said for her part of practicing trying new things and then measuring the results. And you're right, Fran. Yeah, encourage your teenager to read it. I think this would be a good one for some young people to read. I think there's some good value, as Mary said. Maybe catch them earlier. um, but yeah, but measuring the results, I think, and that is something that I have been doing too. And I think that measuring those results and finding out what goes on and making decisions based on those measurements is really what's important. We get some resistance for some things that we do with our website, and from our bosses, and because they have different expectations about what things should look like on the website and where they should be able to find things on the website. And but we've really stuck to a heavy content marketing approach, and I just need to be actually what I need to do is I just need to be better about exposing those measurements and what those are and where those successes are, because we have been really successful, but I think it doesn't show in unless you share those. So, and Fran, you also said you're the only marketer in this building, so your social media falls off the radar. Hasn't seemed to affect our program attendance or library usage. Yeah. Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, efforts ebb and flow. It's tough. It can be really tough to keep those up. I would say, if you got good email marketing going, sticking to that and making that your first priority is probably the right way to go. And I would guess that's probably why your program attendance and library usage. I would imagine that would probably be a good point. Elaine hasn't given up. They haven't given up on X, but limited posting. That's kind of where we are right now, Elaine. Most engagement has been on Facebook and Instagram, so it's not a big issue. Yeah, I think like Angela says, it's scary. It's scary to finally say like we're dropping that platform. But yeah, but there just isn't unfortunately very much value in being there right now for libraries. It's just not really where our conversations are. Denna, uh, Grit explored in the practice of groundedness, Brad Stolberg. Oh, I'm not familiar. Is that a book, Denna, or is that?
Yes, it's a book
Oh,
available.
Oh, we'll have to add it to our list. A life coach of elite athletes. Oh, wow. Author preached relentless practice and perfect achievement. And yeah, there were some interesting things about practice and those things in the book that I thought were interesting. But yeah, that'd be a good one. Thank you. I always love
Yeah.
a good book recommendation. Yeah, marketing email, 62% open rate, Fran. That is, oh my gosh, that is awesome. That is incredible. That is great that people are reading those messages, and that's where people really are, even though, in the social media environment. Now, I did hear something from our guest last on um, the marketing, This Old Marketing, which is the podcast that our guest from last time, Robert Rose, has with Joe Pulizzi, and I think this was in their predictions episode for next year. And what they were talking about is that social media, and I think we've all heard this too, social media is no longer social. That's not really where the conversations are happening. He is envisioning social media to become more of an advertising platform and conversations to happen in more in smaller places like Discord and like more peer-to-peer communication than social. So social is like that. I'm going to blast this out to a huge group of people. This would be more your Snapchat and you're kind of one-on-one, and that's where he's envisioning all the communication happening. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in the next year and if that really does start to make that shift and social media becomes more of like today's television or today's advertising platform where people can catch those kind of things. So if you haven't had a chance, I recommend listening to This Old Marketing, and it was, I think, the last episode from last week that was a really good one. So great. Well, thank you all so much for this awesome conversation about a book that we all had mixed feelings about. So, yes. And thank you for coming again on this holiday week, and for excusing my casualness here. But this was wonderful. So before we go, Mary, can you pick a number between, I'm not here. Let me close this because that is in my way. And let me do this and let me go to gallery view. All right, Mary, can you pick a number between 1 and 5, please?
4.
4. Elaine, you win a copy of next month's book. And the book for next month is, and I always do this and then I forget what the book for next month is. The book for next month is, can anybody help me?
I don't know.
Oh boy, I'm gonna go over to
I
the
was
group
like,
here.
you better say it so I can go
I
find
don't know. I
Yeah.
gotta write it down when you say it.
Oh, it's Bird by Bird. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. So it's a great book. It's about writing. It's about writing and more than writing, but it should be a very interesting book. Anne Lamott, somebody who has influenced a lot of other folks. I know that Anne Handley is a big Anne Lamott fan, and some of our other guests also have lauded her work. So Elaine, I will get in touch with you and figure out what's the best way to get that book to you, in what format you like, because I'm sure as a book like that isn't available in all formats. But yeah, we will meet next month, and let me pull that back up. We will meet next month on Tuesday, January 23rd. So keep a lookout for email and Facebook notifications about that. I look forward to seeing you all, and I hope you all have a safe and happy new year. It is so wonderful to see you all, and thank you for another wonderful year of the Library Marketing Book Club. This has been such a joy to spend this time with you all. It really makes me so happy that we can all share this time. And thank you so much, and happy new year. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year. Thank
Happy
you,
New
Chris.
Year, everybody. And thanks,
Happy
Chris,
New
for
Year.
everything.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all. Bye-bye. Thank you.